Start recording.
Do we clap at some point, yeah?
Yeah, let me just get the intro.
We must perform the sacred clap.
3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Comic Literate Podcast, the podcast that does deep dives into the best of comic books, graphic novels, mangas, penny dreadfuls, webcomics, newspaper comics, and essentially any single frame illustrations where the characters use bubbles to talk or think. I'm your host, the soon-to-be known as Comic Stan, and with me as always is my soon-to-be named host, because I'm about to introduce him in a second. His name is Jamie. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little bit pep in my step. I had a chocolate bar right before we started.
Oh.
I thought that might be the sugar high that keeps me going, but also I might just crash in a minute anyway, so we'll see.
I made a really good burrito for dinner.
Really?
It was quite exciting.
See, this is the kind of banter that the people tune in for.
The thing is,
every week.
We're old now.
We are old.
And so there's nothing more exciting in my day than my burrito being good, and my burrito was good.
Well, we're glad to hear it, and obviously that is that was the subject of today, was how's the burrito. So join us next week when we go over Monday's dinner. Yes, we are second episode of the Comic Sound podcast. The first episode, if anyone does listen to that, will notice the sound of chaos in the background from a rabid kitten that attacked me a couple of times, attacked some inanimate objects a couple of times.
I'll hasten to add that I'm a responsible cat owner, and she isn't rabid. She is vaccinated, but she is feral.
Feral is just the non-chemical rabid.
I suppose
feral
it
is like
yeah.
we can bring her back from the edge. But you know what? I was editing the first episode, last week's episode. I'm in the process of editing it. It's first time editing a podcast on a particular type of software, so it's just learning the ins and outs. I'm using Reaper, which I highly recommend, even though my low experience. But
I've recorded music in Reaper and it's fun. Yeah,
the thing about Reaper is very daunting from the start. It's probably one of the worst. What do you call it? Accessibility to amateurs, but once you know how to do things, it's the most intuitive, customizable. It's great. If anyone's thinking of recording anything, Reaper for sure. I used to use Audacity, but then that got bought by a Russian company, and who knows what's going on with that. So never mind. But one thing I did notice, not in the recording of the podcast, because again, there's some noise in the background, whatever, and I did kind of think comparing us to, professional podcasts, the already established ones, how do we rank up to them, right? And to some, first episode, not great comparatively, just the way it is. But one podcast I listened to, right, and I won't name it for obvious reasons, but it's a prominent podcast within a niche market, right? So most people don't know about it, but if you're in this market, it's a recognizable name within that market, okay. Right? They have recorded ads from one of the prominent people. So even if this person is not on a podcast, they have recorded ads that will appear on other episodes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there are, it's your Blue Chews, the non-dick pill ones, all those. And I'm listening to this podcast, and it's over Zoom, which I hate. I absolutely hate the Zoom recording, low quality.
CGP Gray and Brady make it work.
Yeah, and not everyone's got it. That's the problem. But, they're mid-recording, and I'm already a bit Zoom, but, I like the people. I like the content. And then it comes in with the pre-recorded ad, and this ad must have been recorded on, a tape deck on a helicopter next to a volcano or something. Well, the cat would be fine. But this was, this quality, and, okay, and let's go to this ad forever. And it's you're probably going to
recorded in a rush in a cupboard.
It's look, I'm in my car, I'm driving, I'll just do it on my phone quickly, and then you feed it into the. And I was just what? I listened to this and I thought, what? Bollocks. Our first episode sounded great by comparison. Yeah, there's a cat going mental in the background, but at least you can hear what we're saying.
Absolutely, it doesn't matter. It's all good.
Again, not calling out names, but you know who you are. So. Now we've got all the pleasantries out the way as mandatory in the contract. We are going to be looking at something slightly different, and it is different because it's the second episode, so anything would be different at this point. But we are looking at something that we're not going to hit on too much, but something that we're going to visit every once in a while. In terms of the medium, I'm talking about manga, which is going to be interesting.
We're talking about manga, and we're talking about something that I like so much. You can hear that is a physical copy.
That was him flipping his laptop open and close over and over again.
No, look, it's real, genuine tree matter that has been bound together.
I can vouch that it is genuine paper.
So today we're talking about. Am I allowed to introduce it?
Yeah, go on. Yeah, take it away.
We're talking about the Pokemon Adventures comics.
Mangas.
You're
going to be doing that a lot.
Oh no, I'm going to get in trouble. The manga police are very.
I keep telling you, the graphic novel police are going to come around and do us in. They got us yesterday. They got us last week.
I know, and I forget what it even was. Was it all the dick stuff?
I mean, probably it's going to be. I mean, if they're going to come at us for that, it's going to be non-stop. So they might as well.
So this is one that I really wanted to talk about because it's really bloody good, or at least I think it is. So this was written in 1977 is when the first issue landed. It was written after the video game came out. And I think that's something that surprised you when I told you about it, is that actually it's a manga based off the video game and not the other way around. Yes,
and I did have that misconception for the longest time because, and I realized that as I was reading it, the reason is most Japanese things start with the manga. And then everything
100%.
else normally comes after it. And I just assumed that was the case with Pokemon as well. But
a lot of people in the West would be forgiven for thinking that because Pokemon Red and Blue version came out in 1999 in the US and Europe. What they forget is that Pokemon Red and Green version came out in 96 in Japan.
I was also surprised by the green version.
Yeah, so the originals were red and green. And then Blue version was a remaster. Which came out as a standalone in Japan. And that's the version that became Red and Blue in the US and Europe.
And you know what's even more annoying is, spoiler for the comic, we're not worrying about spoilers because it's 25 years old, so, what are you going to do? But one thing that annoyed me is that the main character is not named Ash, and that's not what annoyed me. His name is Red, which is a little weird in itself. But what annoys me is his name is Red. His rival's name is Green. Red has Bulbasaur from the start, who is a leaf-type green Pokemon.
And Green has Charmander.
Who is a red fire-based.
What's worse is that Red doesn't even start with Bulbasaur as a starter Pokemon. He just has a random Poliwhirl that he's hanging out with.
A random Poliwhirl. And it's only because if it wasn't for the animes, the subsequent animes and the game and everything, the starter 3 Pokemon of the games, I wouldn't have thought anything of it because you'd just be your first kind of introduction. And I tell you what as well, which kind of surprised me. I don't know why. I think if it was the manga starting, I think I had more of an idea of like, oh, they slowly were doing these issues and brought out more Pokemon, and it built from there, and then eventually the game came out and it had 150 Pokemon. But apparently some guy in Japan just went, Pokemon. And they were like, what? Like, Pokemon. I was like, what do you mean? It's like, there's 150 of them. Like, what? Jeez. Like, can we start with like 10? Like,
so it was Satoshi Tajiri, his name is.
Well done.
Thank you. And there's actually a really, side note for anybody who's interested, he has what I think is one of the most interesting mangas I've ever read, which is an autobiographical manga.
Of?
Him.
Okay, right.
Somebody wrote, sorry, it's not autobiographical, it's biographical.
Right.
Somebody wrote a biography of him as a manga, and it details his development of the franchise, which I think is really interesting because it's not a genre you'd really expect to see a biography written in.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting biographies done in like graphic novel form and stuff more recently. So depending on how old that one is, that could have been very ahead of the curve. I believe
it's from the noughties.
Very ahead of its curve then, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I mean, it was written by the same guy, and I suppose one of the first things to get across is you already were a big fan of this title. I have also enjoyed it. I've enjoyed reading it. I only got up to chapter 31, 32.
Yeah.
I felt like that was enough to get a good idea of what the story's like and everything. But here's my caveat for liking it.
Okay.
I think I liked it somewhat, maybe mostly because it's a very similar story, eerily similar to the story of the game. And those Game Boy games, Red and Blue, were like my peak. Your first is your best kind of thing. That was my earliest peak gaming experience. Like to the point where nothing's touched it since.
And weren't they fantastic?
They were amazing, especially for the time. Because at that time, there was some consoles around. Like the Game Boy was like your console at home, but handheld, and you can take it anywhere.
Yeah.
So you had your consoles, and you had like Nintendo 64 and maybe a PlayStation, the first PlayStation.
Possibly a Sega Mega Drive.
Late 90s, 2000 kind of time. But those games were, thinking back, what I think was those games at the time were like, do a level, that's the game. Second level, the game, but a little bit harder. Third level, game, a little hard, new enemy, that kind of thing.
Whereas this had a curve.
Well, not only has an amazing curve, but it feels like an open world when it isn't even. Like we were years off open world games, really. But it felt it because it seamlessly took you from level to level because they weren't really levels.
And absolutely, yeah. And I think in the West, it was our first experience of an RPG.
Yeah, for a lot of people, for sure.
I can't think of an RPG that I played before I played Pokemon Red version. And yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It was a really peak gaming experience. If you are interested in the game itself, I would highly recommend the manga. I've looked it up. It's called It's the man who created Pokemon, Satoshi Tajiri. And it was published in 2018. And it's relatively recent, but it really goes into depth on the technical aspects of making that game fit on a Game Boy cartridge. Because that game was a real marvel of what you could do on a Game Boy cartridge.
And not only did it feel like an open world, but it had this entire system of 150 playable characters, essentially.
Absolutely.
And this whole system for catching them and finding them and the fighting, and it had all the systems with the weaknesses and the strengths and everything, which also came into play for me a bit while reading this manga. So this is, again, like I really loved it because it really took me back to this nostalgic time. So I don't know how much I would have liked to say if I'd never played the games or something.
And that's a really interesting point because I'm a Nuzlocker.
I have no idea what that is. I feel like you should be locked up.
Yeah, no, I should. It's sadism. So it's a way of playing the Pokemon games as an adult that retains the challenge.
Okay, I have actually recently played them myself.
Yeah, which one?
I think I played Blue because that was the one I 151 completed.
So the way you Nuzlocke a game is that you're only allowed to attempt to catch the first Pokemon you see on every route.
Right.
So if you get onto Route 1 and you see a Pidgey and you don't catch it, that's your encounter for that route gone. And you carry on. And then if something faints, it is dead.
Right. So you can never use it again.
You can never use it again.
So this is the Pokemon Game Boy equivalent of the Dark Souls no die runs.
This is
people are just making it exceptionally hard of themselves. And when you ask why, it's like, well, because I just wanted to prove I could.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm a Nuzlocker, and so I've never really fallen out of the Pokemon franchise. I just will happily sit there and play a Pokemon game, and I'll get really angry when something faints. So people are like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I lost my Nidoking, and it's a Nuzlocke." So I never really fell out of love with the franchise. And that weakness resistance thing is interesting because it's essentially just rock, paper, scissors.
Yes, and in a more complex sense with the number of types.
Yeah.
But reading the manga, I would get points where having not only just played the game, but this intense history with it and experience with it and knowing it quite well inside and out, you'd get to these points where this is a weird example. But there's a point where Red and Misty are about to go into some caves, and Misty goes, I'll be fine. There's only water Pokemon in there, and I've got water Pokemon. And immediately I'm like, those caves, some of those caves have water Pokemon, some of them have rock Pokemon, and you would be beneficial. But if you think there's water Pokemon in there, you've got the same type, and that's not an advantage nor disadvantage.
You're not getting any stab moves off.
And I almost wrote it down as a plot hole, but then I was like, well, she'll be all right. She just won't be negative effect. It's like going to rock with rock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
But the gamer mind from the original games, for me, I'm thinking get an electric. Like, get
absolutely.
one electric. Like, even the weakest electric will rinse the higher level.
Take your Pikachu in there with you.
Exactly. And I think the weaknesses and the strength, they were kind of a nerf in the games. Like, if you knew what to do with what, then yeah. And that kind of affected my reading of the manga. I couldn't kind of be like, I couldn't quite sit back and be like, Red being like, oh, I've got a ground type and he's resistant to electric because you can't electrocute the ground or something. And if it wasn't for the game, I might have been like, oh, that's a clever thing they've thrown into there. But as the gamer, I'm like, yeah, rock type, what? You should have already had the rock type out if they had the electric. Like,
yeah, absolutely. You should have just gone straight in with that Graveler.
Exactly. So I'm very aware we're doing this whole review thing and what do we think of it and stuff. And I was very aware of my own biases from my history with it.
I think that's really interesting. I think that's really interesting and it's really valid because this just, I mean, it was a popular manga, but it's never been that popular. I mean, considering we're talking about one of the most popular franchises.
The most successful franchise of all time.
Yeah, we're talking about the most successful franchise of all time here. Considering we're talking about the most popular franchise of all time here.
Yeah.
This is some primary source shit.
Yeah.
And it's not known. Pokemon fans aren't walking up to each other going, aren't the Adventures comics amazing? And so I think that's really interesting that everyone who's reading this is kind of coming back to it in retrospect.
Well, there's a lot of Japanese titles, which, again, my misconception about it originally starting as a manga, there's a lot of Japanese things which start as mangas or animes, and then you get, once that becomes successful, and then there's another stage, like a next media, it's like TV, film, live action, video games, that then reaches the larger world, and that's the thing that gets remembered as the popular thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Normally it's manga and then animes. Like Dragon Ball Z was a manga originally, but no one really cares about that. At least no one in the West really cares about that as much as people who care about the anime, because we grew up with the anime and it was like on when we got home from school.
I mean, the fact that you talk about the Dragon Ball Z anime when actually it was Dragon Ball. Is evidence in itself that actually you have to be fairly knowledgeable on manga to even know about Dragon Ball.
Yep.
And know that it exists as this kind of precursor to Dragon Ball Z.
And there was a Dragon Ball TV show,
good.
But again, did not reach the popularity. And I think it was literally like a time thing. Like Dragon Ball, the original series was maybe popular, then Dragon Ball Z was like even more popular, and that's the one that's remembered.
It helped that Dragon Ball Z was syndicated on Cartoon Network and written for a more Western audience.
Redubbed for sure.
Yeah, Dragon Ball relies really heavily on you having an understanding of Japanese mythology and the yokai, the monsters in Japanese mythology. Again, that is a story for another time. It also, if you want some really interesting early Pokemon art, look up the yosai. They are a set of monsters from Japanese mythology, and they look real Pokemon-y. I'm just going to give you the exact name.
There's a lot of stuff like that look like Pokemon because there's so many Pokemon that had to draw experience from somewhere. I mean, you don't think of it, I never thought of it at the time, but how weird is it that 150 Pokemon, they were like, we need a couple more, we need more ideas. Like, what about one that's Jackie Chan and one that's Bruce Lee? Like,
I know. And
why? But great.
And so when they were creating the Pokemon at Game Freak, they got every staff member to start coming up with designs, and they had them all sellotaped to the wall, and people would walk up and vote on them. And so they had hundreds of these fuckers, and there's loads of them that didn't make the game. And so what you're seeing is what they thought were the best. You're seeing a distilled version of the list that they had.
They start with 1,000 and whittled down the best 150.
And there's one notable Pokemon missing that it still breaks my heart, which is Gorochu. It was the evolved version of Raichu. It was a big spiky Raichu.
Did they not bring that in for the later generations?
No, they gave Pikachu a baby version instead, so it became a 3-stage evolution.
More marketable. That's Baby Yoda logic.
And this is absolutely it. They wanted another Pikachu that was more marketable, so they gave it a baby version.
And it still didn't take off like Pikachu. Even today.
And that's something that's really interesting about this, is that it predates Pikachu being the mascot of Pokemon.
True, but Pikachu is very prominent. I don't think, none of the other Pokemon really have an arc like he does.
Right, yeah, absolutely. No, that's really interesting, actually. Red's Pikachu is pretty badass, isn't he?
Yeah. And that was always an interesting thing about the anime, like how overpowered Pikachu was. But they did explain it in the anime. I don't know if they might have got to this in the manga, but they explained it in the anime where early on, I think, people are like, you should evolve him with Electric Stone because he's pretty overpowered now. So you need to like accommodate the extra power by evolving him to a Raichu. And I think that was very early on because that was like the third gym with the Lieutenant Surge guy in the anime. And then Ash doesn't want to because Pikachu doesn't want to. And I think they kind of explain it's like this Pikachu, because he hasn't evolved, he's an overpowered first generation Pokemon. If that makes sense. I don't know if they get that in the manga past where I got to or not.
I mean, for all the Pokemon game nerds, I think it's all the speed EVs from those Spearows he knocked out in the first episode.
Oh, for sure, yeah. XP, yeah.
Oh, have you not heard of EVs?
EVs?
I'll tell you about EVs later. We can't podcast about EVs.
It sounds so disturbing.
What I'm getting into is really heavy Pokemon, like later generation game mechanics that became really important.
We'll stick to the manga from now on. I'll tell you one thing I didn't like.
Go for it.
It's not so much I didn't like, but I was a bit kind of like, that's a bit weird why they're doing this. So I like the overarching story with Team Rocket. Like that's great.
Yeah, isn't it
you
cool?
laid the groundwork. It's exactly like the game. So I obviously enjoyed that as well. You know, who is Team Rocket? Like, who are these people? Oh, there's more of them here. Oh, they're doing this thing now. What are they up to? You know, and more of a coherent story in the manga because they have revealed plans, whereas in the game you more just kind of thwart their plans as you go along.
Yeah,
they have like a new scheme when you get to the town and you sort that out and whatever. But what I didn't like was the introduction of Mew in the first chapter.
Straight in the first panel, there's a Mew.
Exactly, and the reason is like, this is what I was saying before. The guy who created Pokemon just literally went from nothing to 150 Pokemon. Like, we're already in. Like, keep up, stupid, that kind of thing. And in this chapter, it's you say you picked up the manga for the first time, you haven't played the game, whatever. You open the manga, you're like, here are Pokemon. These are monsters. People train them and catch them and fight them and blah, blah. And you're like, all right, I'm keeping up. It's like, there's 150 Pokemon. You're like, oh, geez, all right, let me write that down, whatever. It's like, look, there's a Mew. It's a phantom Pokemon. What's that? I don't know. Like, you're already like head first into the concept, and then they're already breaking the conventions straight away. And it doesn't give you the time to be like, wait, what was that? And I feel like if you just left a little bit of time, got the reader used to Pokemon, and this is from if you hadn't read it or played the game or anything, you didn't know Pokemon beforehand. I'm trying to come from that angle. You come from that angle, like, let them get used to Pokemon first and then start breaking the rules. Because that's what you do in any kind of story. You make yourself some rules and then you creatively break your rules to, add suspense and create new mystery and blah, blah, blah. Probably shouldn't say that on podcast because people are literally tuning in to hear us talk. Probably don't want to say the word blah.
And what's really interesting about the Mew thing is that most people in 97 wouldn't have known what Mew was.
Exactly.
So Mew isn't in the core game. There's a glitch where you can catch Mew. But do you know when that was discovered?
I had a Mew probably, I don't know, at least a couple of years after release.
2003.
Okay, yeah.
2003 is when the Mew glitch became commonly known.
Do you know the specifics of the Mew glitch?
Oh, yeah, I could Mew glitch. Yeah.
But like how, you might already know this, but I just read it today. So he was partially written into the game, and then he wasn't completed because they decided not to put him in. He, she, they, whatever Mew's pronouns are. And then...
they. I imagine Mew's... Well, Mew's genderless.
Like a they. Yeah, and even Mewtwo is kind of genderless as well.
Mewtwo doesn't get a gender.
Yeah. So they didn't put Mew in, but they'd written some of their code. What happened was there was a Game Boy cheat thing. So you put it in the Game Boy, you put the game, and you get cheats for the games you're playing. And that cheat completed the missing code. Oh no,
you can get Mew without the cheat pack.
Oh, I never did it without the cheat pad.
Right, yeah. So no, the cheat packs came out. But so Mew was written into the game as an event Pokemon. So you would go to a big machine in department stores in Japan. You would put your copy of Pokemon Red version in the machine and it would give you a Mew. But there is a glitch that you can do, like physically just you and your Game Boy. There's a glitch that you can do to get a Mew. But the point is, Mew was an event Pokemon. It was locked in the code of the game. So you will have, if you were a really attentive 6-year-old, you would have seen some text about Mew in Cinnabar Island.
Yep.
You would have heard people talk about Mew, but you wouldn't have experienced Mew. And unless you were a fairly attentive gamer, you probably wouldn't have found Mew 2 on your first playthrough as a 6-year-old.
I think it was written into the game where once you did the league, once you beat the
Elite Four, you could go to Cerulean City and find him.
Yeah.
But that cave wasn't...
Do they not push you in that direction at all?
They never signposted it.
Right. So I can't remember if they did or
that
not.
Cave, honestly, you beat the league, there's no longer a bloke in front of that cave, and you step in and everything's level 60.
Right.
What the fuck is going on here? And so, yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting choice that they made to have Mew on the front panel, because it would have been the first time a lot of people had seen him. And I suppose that makes him their only unique asset. You know,
while we're on this topic, I think now is as good a time as any for me to reveal, maybe also better ways, confess something that I've been sitting on for quite a few decades now.
What's that?
In my original playthrough.
Yeah.
Not my original. I first played Red version and I got pretty far in that, enjoyed it, and then the save got corrupted and I lost it. So then I just played Blue from the start. Blue was the one I did 151, complete everything on. I used the missing no cheat to get rare candies.
We've all done that.
Yeah.
We've all done that.
But I mean, no one's admitted it. Like, it's one of those things that everyone's done, but no one will be brave enough to come on to a podcast and announce and ask forgiveness from the Pokemon higher-ups. The community at large. I did the missing no cheat. It was awesome. I loved the admin of go here, do this, go here, do that. Free stuff. Like,
so
it's like winning the lottery.
The missing go cheat is
but
like
cheating at the lottery.
So you know the first part of the missing go cheat where you go talk to the bloke who teaches you how to catch Pokemon and fly away?
Yes.
That's the first half of the Mew glitch.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you muck about in Cerulean City for a little bit, and then Mew just appears at like level 7 or whatever. I think it's a really interesting choice they made, and I think it's probably because he was the only unique asset they had. Everything else had you'd seen everything else by playing the game, but Mew was something that they had access to that they could use. So
this is going to be an issue with this episode is anytime we talk about the manga, it's going to come back to the games because they're so, especially for us in our generation, they're so intrinsically linked.
Yeah.
So it's going to be difficult to do one without the other.
Maybe we should actively try and do that, and I can talk about one of the things that I find really interesting about the game.
Yep. The game or the manga? Did you mean manga?
Oh, I meant manga.
All right, well, we're not editing out, so
I'm not editing that out. Mistakes happen.
Not that we've edited anything out so far. Nothing at all. Nothing's been edited.
We've not been coughing our vapey lungs up or anything.
This is all real life as it is.
So,
this is the real world.
I think that this comic book is a really great expression of something that was happening in the 90s. Which is a kind of worldwide skepticism of genetic research.
Yep. I mean, especially the Mewtwo storyline from the start, as 100%, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, and the Mewtwo storyline in the game, oh my God, we went straight back there, is a minor subplot that you see for one dungeon.
Yep.
You go to Cinnabar Island, you walk around the lab, you see some Mewtwo stuff, and then that's it. It's a very minor subplot that you could almost miss if you weren't being quite an attentive gamer in that particular dungeon. And then both this comic and to a certain extent... This manga. Both this manga and the Pokemon film from, 99, 2000?
Great film.
Both have that aspect of it as their central observation.
Yep.
The central observation of those films is... we are going of these pieces of media is that we're going to hone in on that one aspect of it and make it central to everything that our story is about.
There really are only two core stories and arcs from the first generation of Pokemon. It's Mewtwo and by extension Mew, and friendship will defeat anything. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I suppose, really the other main plot of the game is the Team Rocket stuff, which is very present here, and I think better represented here.
Yes, yeah, I'd say so. I think the anime, the part of the problem with the anime was that it was kind of toned down for the kids.
Absolutely.
Well, financially, it was probably an amazing decision in the long run. But I think the anime takes a bit of a hit where the manga was a bit more of a complex, longer overarching story. And the anime was like, Brock can't talk to women. And
I know, right? Yeah, the anime's weak, I think, in comparison.
Well, I mean, for a kid show, it's pretty good. I don't know why the manga just doesn't seem as much of a kid focused product, does it?
It's more adult, isn't it?
It's more adult, and not in the way that Japanese stuff can sometimes be. And if you've read Japanese manga and stuff, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
It's more adult, not more adult in air quotes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There's like references to torture or like Pokemon attacks on humans being like torture and used for torture. Yes. Like that's one thing I noticed recently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, they're like the Team Rocket guys will routinely use their Pokemon to attack humans. Like I'm literally looking at a panel here where Giovanni has Red pinned up against the wall with his Beedrill.
Yes.
And that's vicious.
And in the anime, it was like, oh, Ash has been shocked by Pikachu again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I tell you what I liked. I really liked the one chapter with Giovanni introduction.
Yeah.
I thought that was very clever. I thought that was, again, I came at this manga thinking it was going to be a kid's thing. And I'd say at least half of it is quite, kid-oriented, power of friendship. Red has, like, he trains Pokemon with his heart and not his head, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bollocks.
Yeah, I agree.
But the Giovanni introduction I thought was quite good because it started off with like, hey, no one's in this gym. But there's a statue and they see the statue and then it cuts to Red talking to Giovanni, not knowing it's Giovanni. And it also does the thing of not having to ham-fist the story.
Yes.
Where it goes, oh, thanks for helping me out of that cave. Like, I would never have been able to find these Pokemon fossils without you. And Red's like, well, thanks for letting me keep some. Like, it's a bit exposition-y, but it was better than I anticipated for this, what I thought was going to be, as I said, a very kid-based manga. So I really liked that story. I thought it was interesting, the whole Giovanni, like, let's see what this kid's all about. He's thwarted our plans. And you don't even realize he's Team Rocket till the end of that chapter. So he's just like, oh, I've heard about this trainer. Let's see what he's all about. And there's some secrecy. And then right at the end, he's like, moves his jacket. He's got the R on it. Like, I'm Team Rocket, lol.
The same way that Sabrina reveals herself.
Yes,
Sabrina reveals herself to be Team Rocket. So Team Rocket, their central sort of mission in the book is that they're looking to create these genetically modified Pokemon that they can use as weapons. And so there is an Eevee in the book.
Just out of interest, that's also the plot to the latest Jurassic Park film. Not the latest one, the one right before. So who had it first? You decide.
What? Do you mean the one with the guy from Parks and Recreation?
Yes.
Chris Pratt being the name that I can't find there.
Yeah. They were like, well, what if we sold dinosaurs as weapons? It's like, well, we've already got guns, mate. We've got guns. It's like, yeah, but you can point a laser pointer and the dinosaur goes for it. It's like, if you're pointing a laser pointer, you could just shoot him with a gun. This is excessive.
But I think it's interesting because it kind of it's a thing that is prevalent in comic books of the era. And so Peter Parker in the 1960s was bitten by a radioactive spider. Mm-hmm. In the 90s comics, it becomes a genetically modified spider.
Yes. Fantastic Four with the cosmic rays. That was around the 60s. So that was space exploration and people literally not knowing what was in space.
Yeah. And then, and we get to the 90s, and the thing that we're scared about in science is genetic modification. And that is what becomes the main weapon that Team Rocket are trying to utilize. And so they create an Eevee which can evolve back and forth through its evolutionary stages.
So that Eevee bit threw me off. It threw me off a little bit because I was like, wait, what? It changes from forward to back? They can't. They don't do that in the game and the anime.
Absolutely. Exactly. And so it's a departure from the anime, but it's also along that same theme of the thing that we were scared of in the 90s. And the way that it's been weaponized is so interesting. Like so there's a scene where Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno, for those who have lived under a rock since 1996, they're the three legendary birds.
Yeah, fuck you if you don't know that.
The three legendary birds get fused into one like awful mutant. And red, taken as a symbol, that's really interesting because these Pokemon are legendary. They are quite literally the mystical beasts that these people's ancestors told stories about. And they have been taken and turned into something else with this new science.
I do feel like that's one place the anime did better.
Do you think?
Because in the anime, they really portrayed them as those legendary, mystical, maybe not even real, ethereal beings. And in the manga, it's like, I'm going to try and catch it with a Pokeball. It's like seeing Bigfoot and being like, I'm going to put a bloody collar and lead on him. Like,
yeah.
I think the anime did a better job of making them like in awe of them. And then if you then got to, I don't think they did this storyline in the anime with the, but if you'd got to that would have felt more like capturing a phoenix and the Loch Ness monster and a ghost and mashing them together in a horrific experiment. Yeah. Whereas in the manga, it feels like, well, those are just 3 powerful Pokemon and you're experimenting on them. Like, you've been doing that already. These are just the most powerful you've got so far.
I think that's an interesting perspective, and I suppose you're right that actually in this context they're not portrayed as legendary as they would have been.
You only know of them as legendary because someone goes, "Huh, legendary Pokemon."
Yeah, absolutely. But I still think it's an interesting on a symbolic level.
Yeah, oh yeah, the core storyline, yeah, for 100%. That was just a little like nagging thing I saw as having watched the anime beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again with Mewtwo and his spoon. Did you get to Mewtwo?
I didn't get in the manga, but there was some of that in the anime and the film.
So Alakazam has a spoon, right?
But where he gets it from, we don't know.
No, he just has it. But
he keeps pulling out spoons. I keep taking them away from him.
Right?
He just pulls out another spoon. Where's he getting them from?
In the manga, he has a giant spoon, Mewtwo. A big one, like a two-handed...
All the psychics have spoons, don't they? Well, not all of them, but a lot.
So Kadabra and Alakazam have a spoon.
Kadabra has 1, and then Alakazam gets 2.
Absolutely.
It's like a graduation kind of...
Double spoon power.
Well, but like when you pass a certain level of your like qualifications, like you got your second spoon.
And then Hypno has like a pendulum.
Yes.
But yeah, no. Mewtwo has this giant spoon that he wields. And it doesn't make a whole lick of sense, but I enjoy it, just watching Mewtwo cut about with a spoon.
I like how some of the Pokemon, because I used to have like the Pokedex book with all and the game descriptions and all that. I love how with some they explain the items and some don't. So like a prime example was Cubone.
Yeah.
Who the skull and it was his mum's skull and she died and he kept the skull and now he wears it.
Yeah.
Pretty metal. But
it's pretty metal.
But meant to be sad.
There's a reason I have a Cubone skull tattooed on me.
Yes,
it's so fucking metal.
We'll get a picture. We'll put it on the socials at some point in line with this episode.
What of my identifiable markings? I'd rather not.
Yeah. If you do crimes or something, they'll be able to find you. But they explain some. Another one was Farfetch'd. He carried on the leak.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I can't remember what it was, but they had some explanation. And then by contrast, it's like, why has Alakazam got 2 spoons?
Fuck knows. I mean, the reason is that he's kind of quietly based on Uri Geller.
Yeah, all the psychics are. That's why they all have spoons.
But look, I'm sorry, I've just found it. We're looking at... there's no... The pagination's terrible.
Did Pokemon do it before Matrix? I see the big spoon. It doesn't look like a spoon from that angle.
Does it not look like a spoon?
It looks like a flat shovel from the angle.
Isn't that what a spoon is at its core?
Yeah, but like a shovel that you can dig holes with, not like a spoon that you can like break out of Shawshank.
Yeah, okay, that's
second Shawshank reference on the podcast.
There's going to be one a week.
Yeah, if I can sneak them in, I will. or sneak them out.
That was magical.
That's what you people come here for. Anyway,
absolutely.
Yeah. The Mewtwo is definitely the defining thing, or was especially why they went anime and then they set up the movie in the anime.
Yeah.
But yeah, the manga. Coming back to the manga, I definitely found that one of my issues was, again, I would see these stories playing out just like the game. And I would have this kind of weird, on the one hand, I'm like, well, I've seen this already. But on the other hand, I'm like, I'm seeing this in manga storytelling form rather than in with its manga and anime comparatively, they could do the exact same stories. It's just
Frame
different
by
medium.
frame.
Yes. But the game is a whole different beast, especially back then. So, like, the force field around the big city, I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
But so in the game, there was just 4 points of access and you just couldn't get in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like you don't have a ticket and you can't get a ticket till you get into the city. But then
it was
it turns
Saffron,
out,
wasn't it?
Yeah, then there's a mountain cave thing that if you go through that way, and then you can kind of sneak in that way. So reading the manga, it was really interesting when they're like, "Oh, there's a force field, we can't get in," and I'm like, "Oh shit, that's like the game." Like, but that wasn't a force field back then.
It's a different reason.
So there's this really weird experience of like familiarity, but also this is new, this is different, this feels weird. So I had that a lot. That's just one example. I had that almost with every story beat of this manga.
Yeah.
So it was hard to get a really objective look at like what are these stories like when I have this previous experience. But on the whole, I was engaged with it. I enjoyed, not knowing necessarily what was coming up next. I like the interactions with the Pokemon. I think the Red being the, train with your heart kind of guys, like it feels dated now, but back then it was probably very not new, like it's basic storytelling, but back then it felt a bit fresher, especially in the mainstream.
And I think
because like later on, like later iterations, like Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, was the believe in the heart of the cards and all that. I think Beyblades had something like that as well.
Yeah, well, Beyblades had the bit chips.
Believe in your spinning top.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
I think if we were reading this in the original Japanese, it would make more sense.
Oh, you should have said I would have broken out my bloody translator.
Well, this is it, isn't it?
I know Domo Arigato.
But I imagine what you've cut down to the core to there is this kind of prevailing sense in Japanese culture of work hard, do the thing,
honor with your Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of it's a Western translation of the honor system that they have in Japan that doesn't necessarily exist in the West anymore.
Yes.
And so I think that's kind of a common thread in a lot of Japanese media intended for children because they are partly allegorical, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But always, like, especially in Japan, like, I think children, and for the most part in the West, anything children-based had to be like, what's the lesson? What are we teaching the kids?
It had to have some moral context.
100%.
Which the game didn't. The game gives you a silent protagonist who is kind of mooching about doing his thing. It's very non-linear as well. Like, once you get to the kind of mid-game, you can pretty much go where you want and tackle the gyms.
Really?
Yeah, once you hit mid-game, Erica, Koga, Sabrina, you can do in whatever order you want.
But I would argue that I think if you don't know that, it still feels linear. Because I don't remember getting to a point where it's like, well, you can go this way if you want, or you can go this way for like the first time. I think you don't know that, but the game directs you in a way that you naturally go one way or the other. And not even necessarily in a particular order, but it just feels like you're still going linear. Because you have been linear for like half the time. You wouldn't have any reason to think it's changed all of a sudden.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, the manga definitely has its lessons to impart. What I thought was interesting was there's the Pokemon fan club.
Yeah.
And Red is like, oh yeah, I like battle mine. And like, you battle yours? And then the lesson at the end, like Red battles to save the kidnapped Pokemon. So the lesson at the end becomes, don't be a pussy and make your Pokemon fight.
You have this magical beast that can shoot fire, use it.
Yes, right? Exactly. And I'll tell you what, growing up, my parents will bloody attest to this for sure. When I played the Pokemon game, all the time, I would constantly say, God, I wish Pokemon were real. To the point where I think my mum started off as like, oh, that's nice, dear, to, will you shut up about, they're not real, shut up, like that.
I kind of still feel that way.
Yeah, well, I think I've had other fandoms since then. So but back then, that was my first fandom. So I think that's the natural reaction as a kid to our generation having franchises and these massive worlds. You wish you were in that world.
I think the idea of the family dog being big enough and smart enough that it can just be with you at all times is magical.
Yeah, and that's also why they kept Pikachu out of the Pokeball for the anime.
Yeah.
They not only did they want him to be marketable and be on screen as much as possible, but it definitely added to that. The reason that people liked him was not only is he a cute animal, but the fact that he was always by your side, on your shoulder, following you. You could talk to him in a way.
And intelligent.
He understood you. That was the main thing.
And Red's Pikachu is incredibly intelligent.
Yeah. Pikachu did for Pokemon what Ross Geller's monkey did for monkeys in Friends. People were like, oh, we could do that. Like,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, he was infinitely marketable, wasn't he? He wasn't originally intended to be the mascot.
So was there one that was intended to be?
They thought that Clefairy might be the mascot.
Oh, that's weak.
It's weak sauce, isn't it? Because if you think Pikachu, you can only in the original games, you can only catch Pikachu in one place.
Yeah.
And he's really hard to get.
Oh yeah, I struggle to.
He has a 5% encounter rate. So you
amongst like some weak like Weevils and
Caterpies. Yeah. It's the bugs and a Pikachu. And you would have to spend more time in Viridian Forest than I think any 6-year-old ever did to find the Pikachu. And so they kind of plucked him from obscurity and made him the mascot. And again, I don't know if this comic contributed to that.
This manga.
we
need a ticker. Like,
we need it. Yeah, absolutely.
How many times?
Can you edit that in?
It's been. You know what? I reckon I can.
You reckon you can? That's awesome.
The first one's going to be weird. It's going to be like you're going to hear a ding, and everyone's like, "What's that?" And it's only by the third one they're like, "Oh, that's what that is."
That's what's going on there.
Tell you what. Once we get to the point where I've got a soundboard, it's going to be all like, it's going to be like Dingo and the Baby.
Dingo and the Baby. That's a
Family Guy reference. Yeah. The only thing I could think of, like, because we don't have that type of radios here.
No.
We have, like, it's bloody Jim White here on the breakfast hour, and you're like, I've never heard this person. It's like, don't you like Jim White? Like, I don't know who this person is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jim White's great. He prank calls people and pretends to be their mum, and you're like, all right.
Dude, I have a CD player.
Okay. You have a CD player? Okay.
Like in my car, I have a CD
that's why you don't. You were just
don't.
boasting about having a CD player.
Yeah, dude, I have a CD player. I
was going to be like, good for you. You're doing really well for yourself nowadays.
In my hovel.
Yes, you have a CD player. Well done. It's the mark of middle class these days.
I realised that having a CD player in your car is as rare now as it was when they were expensive.
Yeah, it goes back. Yeah, technology. Like, nothing lasts forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're on a tangent.
Let's talk about obsolescence in the middle of this podcast.
Is it obsolescence?
Obsolescence.
Is it obsolescence? Well, I should have mentioned this, right? I need to write this into the opening intro. The reason that the podcast is called Comic Literate is because I consider myself the comic expert, and if you
use that word sparingly,
expert, yeah. The comic familiar. I'm the comic guy, and you, holding the literature degree, are the literate part of it.
Yeah, I have an English degree.
Exactly. So while it's a clever comic literate, like, you can read comics, but these are the two halves of the podcast.
Yeah.
I need to put that in the intro because I haven't for the past two. So we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I did a whole thing. It was a few years where I read books and got drunk, I suppose.
And what are you doing now?
No, I don't drink anymore. I just read books.
You see, people can change. And that's the moral of the episode. Right, so back onto Pokemon. Because, why not? I think I just made notes like as I was kind of going on. So they might be just sporadic and random. Okay.
Ryan's notes time.
My notes times. Chapter 1 versus Mew, crazy. Although I liked the chapter structure of who the versus the Pokemon is. So if you don't know the Pokemon, the chapter heading is versus like Taurus. And you're like, what's a Taurus? I'm looking forward to finding out what that is.
And then you discover what a Taurus is and you realize it's badass.
Exactly, yeah. Manga style reading was difficult to get used to.
Right to left.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I constantly I'd get into it and I'd be absolutely fine reading it. And I would put it down, do something, come back, and immediately I'd start reading from the left again and go, oh, for God's sake. Like,
the whole thing doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. And that happened literally every time. I think you have to read manga. And this is my first manga. So that's why I had this is my first manga. Yeah, I only got into animes like a couple of years ago. And even then, a few select
So I'm not an anime guy, but I've read One Piece and Dragon Ball and a bit of Bleach and this.
So you're way more of a manga guy than an anime guy.
Oh, yeah, no, I've watched...
You nerd.
I
actually
like the original manga. No, yeah.
Oh, is that guy, ladies and gentlemen?
Oh, I actually read manga. No, and so yeah, this was again probably one of my firsts up and down the years. Although One Piece is a long one, as is Bleach. What did you think of the art style?
The art style, it didn't have as much of an impact on me because I was just comparing it constantly to the game and the anime. I mean, it's good. It depicts. I'm still not used to the black and whiteness of mangas.
Yes.
I feel like if you start with comics especially, then when you get to mangas, it just feels like they're missing something.
And this has never been colorized.
Yes. And there's a couple of mangas that I would maybe dip my toe into, but the awareness they're going to be black and white is kind of almost puts me off. I'm a big fan of One Punch Man. And we're going to do that for an episode at some point.
That's another manga I've read. One Punch Man's really good.
Exactly. And being the superhero guy, like One Punch Man is like a critique and a parody and a satire. So it's very good in all those things. But yeah, it puts me off the black and whiteness. I mean, I still enjoyed it. So it's not like it was an issue at all. And I read The Walking Dead original. That was all in black and white.
Yeah, black and grey.
Yeah. Anime style or manga style drawings do take a little bit to get used to as well. They have their own way of, showing things. And the speech style in some parts I do find is a bit over-expositional sometimes. And I think that's a translation thing.
Oh, I think it is. I think it's to do with the way it's been translated.
And also, and I don't know if this was the copy I was reading or what, but what is it when they say K-U over and over again? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I think that's like...
Is that laughter?
Yeah, ki. Like
I was reading, I was like, who is Koo? Like, is he a character?
Yeah, no, they're laugh sounds.
Right.
Again, it's, how the French call the dog... A Frenchman would say a dog goes bow wow, and an English person would say they go woof.
I get the concept. Yeah.
So yeah, a Japanese person would say a laugh sounds like a kiki as opposed to a ha-ha.
So they thought they were translating correctly by being like, this is the noise we are talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the same way that if an English person went woof, if you don't use that particular sound, you'd be like, what is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense. There was a little thing with them referring to Ivysaur as just saw. And I thought there was always a gap on the speech bubble before. I thought my copy, for some reason, had missed out the word ivy. Like it just removed it.
Yeah, I don't remember noticing that. So that may well be just your copy, or it might be something.
No. So the reason I know it's not is because in between, so the specials, they're the collection of volumes, essentially. At the beginning of the volume, once Bulbasaur becomes an Ivysaur, they have his Pokemon at the front. So they, when they do a kind of rundown, here's the story. They have the Pokemon. It's like Pikachu, Poliwrath, and then it goes, in quotes, Saur, S-A-U-R, and then under that, Ivysaur.
So it might be his nickname.
Yeah, it's his nickname, but it's just a weird, it's like if I called you me.
Yeah.
I'd be like, why have you taken that part?
But only one Pokemon gets a nickname. Like there's like Pikachu is called Pika in it, isn't it? He has a nickname. But there's only a finite amount of them that ended up with nicknames.
Pikachu, he says it himself, and it kind of comes across. He's like, "Hey guys, call me Pika from now on." Like, we are not. We will never call you. Hey guys, call me Mad Dog. Like, fly the Conchords reference.
Absolutely, yeah. It's allowed. It's valid.
Interesting little choices like the Pokeballs are see-through.
I know, and isn't that cool?
It adds something, and I guess the reason they didn't do it in the anime is because they couldn't be asked to animate it. But also it makes more of a sense technologically. You've got this device, especially in the 90s, this device that turns Pokemon into data almost, which they don't show in the manga because I guess without color that would look weird. Why is a gust of wind going into the Pokeball or something?
Exactly.
But in the anime, it's that, the noise,
and it goes red when you're catching it and white when you're letting it out. And it's a whole thing. So as a piece
of technology, I think it would be weird if it was see-through. Whereas in the manga, they come across almost like magical glass balls almost.
Yeah, I think that's something that struck me when I first read it.
I've made the note, and I've already said that before, but I'm just repeating again. After starting the concept of Pokemon, then immediately introduces Phantom Pokemon.
Yeah.
I've said it before, but again, it's
wild, isn't it?
But also, one thing I put is the guy who originally came up with it for Game Freak as a game, he was inspired by insect collecting, wasn't he?
That was his childhood hobby, yeah.
So he was like, oh, kids don't really play with insects or stuff. They're like indoors. So rather than being like, why don't I get kids involved in insect collecting and get them outdoors again? He was like, I'm going to come into the kids' homes. I'm going to make them collect on the electronic devices that they're now playing on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just like, oh, kids, they're always like indoors on their phones and stuff. Like, I'm going to make them do this specific hobby on their phones. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I admire his foresight. He knew obviously where everything was heading technologically, and he was like, I'm going to make these kids collect creatures and monsters if it's going to kill me.
Yeah.
But again, then he went straight from nothing to 150 Pokemon, all these different types.
Yeah, no, it was ambitious, wasn't it?
Misty knew what grass were resistant to water. No. Misty did not know that grass types were resistant to water, but she recognized the move Leech Seed, which is specifically a grass type move.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, plot hole so big you could drive a truck through it, you know?
And
Ruined my immersion.
And Misty and Brock aren't quite so central here.
Well, Misty more so than Brock. Brock's just a one-off. Like.
Yeah. Misty's important, but I suppose Misty was a fan favorite because...
For reasons I'd prefer not to get into.
Everyone loves the waifus.
She's a child, though.
I'm sorry, like, she's as close to a waifu as you get.
Please, stop talking right now. I want this podcast to take off.
Have you ever heard of Misty's Tears?
Do not, whatever you're about to say, please don't. Can you tell me off air?
No. I'm telling you no.
How bad is it?
It's pretty bad.
Oh, can we...
Misty's Tears.
Oh, Jesus.
Is a Pokemon card that only got released with its original artwork in Japan.
Oh, I'm scared.
Because it's Misty crying, holding her dead Starmie.
Oh, thank God. I thought it was going to be sexual.
You can see side boob.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Why did they do that?
I thought it was going to be a dead Pokemon. I was like...
No. And do you know what?
Relieved for a second.
It's sought after. You go on eBay.
Of course it fucking is.
Everyone wants a copy of Misty's Tears.
Just... if you're one of those people listening now, stop listening. Just delete wherever you're listening on. Just
Jamie quietly hides his binder of Pokemon cards. I don't have a copy.
I can guarantee, right? You've heard my reaction. If he did have a copy, this podcast would be over. So seriously, if you got a podcast, if you got a copy, just show me. What else in the notes? Pokemon's this is something that I thought was interesting. So the manga looks it's dedicated for the game, right? It's like get people involved in the game. Like you read the manga and you go, oh, here's an awesome game as well for it. That was the end goal, and you can tell that because there's parts of the manga which are exactly not only like screenshots of the game, which is something in itself, but Red is in the Pokemon Center and he's on the computer, and the computer is in the exact corner as the same as the games. Yeah. The counter is the exact same as the game, but not just a screenshot from the game. It's literally a manga interpretation,
fully rendered
of the exact. It literally feels like you're going from one medium to another. Like you're literally jumping in and out of a type of visual, artwork and display.
Yeah, it's so interesting. If you are an adult in 2022 looking for some good Pokemon nostalgia, this, I think, serves that purpose better than the anime.
Replaying the game, rewatching the anime is good because you're visiting stuff you probably had before.
Yeah.
This is good because it has beats and twists that you don't know because it's not exact, but there's there's hardcore nostalgic moments where you just go, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's exactly how it looks.
That punched me right in the 90s.
Exactly, yes.
Absolutely.
Interesting that I made a note of. Red randomly uses a smoke bomb at one point.
Oh yeah, 100%. That happens.
Does he? Was this established? It's like, good thing I've got these smoke bombs as well as my Pokemon.
Again, I think this is something which, I think the guys who were writing this had some kind of insight into what was happening in the development team for the games.
And you think stuff didn't then make it? Or?
Well, no, because a smoke ball is an item that appears in Generation 2.
Okay, right.
So in Gold and Silver, the smoke ball appears as an item.
Hmm.
And Pokemon Gold and Silver came out in the year 2001, 2003. It was in development from about 97, 98. And so I honestly think that the people who are writing this had some kind of insight as to what was coming from the games. And that's just an element of Generation 2 that kind of got chucked in there.
The reason I thought that it might have been removed from the first one is it sounds like one of those things that they planned for the first games, and then when we don't have the technology, and then when they did have the technology in the second time, they were like, oh, let's put the smoke bombs back in. But I just thought, but even in the manga itself, like if you completely ignore the games, the manga itself, imagine any series not related to like spies or, you know, like that kind of
and
spycraft
a 10-year-old
stuff.
has a smoke bomb.
Well, just randomly like, oh, we're in this dodgy situation. We've been in a few dodgy situations before. Normally we fight our way out, but this time I have a smoke bomb. You're like, wait, what? Where did you get it from? Have you bought some? Are you incorporating them in your adventures from now on?
We never see them again.
Exactly. That's the craziest. Like, it's like they brought in a substitute writer for a week. He's like, no, he uses a smoke bomb. It's like, Red doesn't really have smoke bombs. He does now for 1 week only.
With no exposition to explain how he acquired it.
They could have at least had just one, like he goes to a shop and they're like, lucky you, kid. You came in, I got one last smoke bomb left. And he's like, okay, I don't really use smoke bombs. It's like, they're brilliant. You just chuck them on the ground, you disappear, your enemy's like, where'd he go? And he buys one, he uses it. It's like, it's a shame I could only get the one. And then he goes back to the store where he bought it from, and the guy is disappeared, and people don't, like, they're like, that man died 100 years ago. And then you just keep on with the journey.
And then it's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm writing Pokemon better than it was originally written. Don't at me. But the adult violence in it, I think is it's few and far in between. Like we were saying about the torture stuff with the Pokemon attacks, but also Arbok gets literally sliced in half.
Yeah.
No blood, but you see inside.
It's used sparingly, and I think that gives it its potency. Like the moment I mentioned earlier where Giovanni has Red pinned up against the wall with his Beedrill's stinger.
So we have to establish Beedrill is a Pokemon and not a euphemism. I think we should make that clear.
Yeah, absolutely. So Beedrill is a big bee with
Yes.
2 stingers for hands.
Yes.
And it has the protagonist, Red, pinned up against the wall with that stinger. And that, like, Pokemon on human violence is something that doesn't really exist outside of this piece of media in the genre, in the franchise.
It technically does in the anime, but in a very sanitized version. So like Ash would get electrocuted and they'd be like, oh, he's been electrocuted again. And James and Jesse would get exploded like every episode.
Yeah,
and that was like cartoonish, Coyote Roadrunner, like, whoa, that kind of thing.
Ding.
Yes.
So yeah, Pikachu would electrocute people, Jesse and James would get exploded, and then in the film there was a lot of psychic violence that happened. Yeah.
The psychic violence seems a bit more like at the time you kind of don't realize how bad it is, and then later in life you're like, they're in his mind.
Yeah, that's pretty insidious, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, that it's used as a plot device, not infrequently, but it's used as a plot device relatively regularly in this. And I think it's one of the things that lends it a little bit of a grittiness that nothing else in the franchise really has.
Yes, as I mean, any other type of it for sure. I don't know how the mangas, if that continues through them, or if they also get sanitized because of the popularity, and they're like, we have to make these more kid friendly to appeal to a wider audience.
I've read up to like the 3rd or 4th volume, and to be honest with you, the 2nd volume is darker.
Really?
Yeah, the 2nd volume has this little kid called Gold in it.
That's Gold and Silver, I'm guessing. Isn't it?
Yeah.
What is with the color names? Like,
they ran out.
What, of names?
Well, they ran out of color names for a while and they stopped doing them.
We need more colors.
Yeah. And now they're back to color names. But they're reusing an existing color because it's scarlet and violet.
Right.
So it's red and purple versions.
Well, they're technically different, I suppose, but it's just why colors? Like Ash was a great name just for, anime protagonist.
Yeah.
Well, like, was it short for Ashley? We don't know. It's just Ash, but they had that cool thing in the film where it was like, the world will turn to ash. And they were like, oh, yeah,
that's right.
they were Norfolk.
That's right. What's going on here?
We got there. But yeah, it's just weird. It would break my immersion a little bit when they go, oh, there's green. And you're like, oh yeah, that's a name. Like,
yeah.
There's blue. Like, oh, blue's a woman. Because the Pokemon was amazingly progressive back then, surprisingly, where they gave blue to a woman. I don't know. I thought about this. Like, I don't know if Japan, they just didn't have those stereotypical gender colors. I don't know if because I think, am I right in thinking, I don't know if you know this or not, the Power Rangers, pink was a man in the original.
Yeah.
So they just don't have these gender colors like we have in the West.
I can't believe the podcast has already gotten to this place. But are
we talking about the inherent racism of the Power Rangers?
No. The fact that I'm going to have to now mention something that every conversation comes back to at some point.
Are you about to mention Hitler?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. Yeah. It was the Nazis.
Right. Okay.
There was a passing gender binary and color that existed in the Victorian era in Britain. But generally pink was used for little boys and blue was used for little girls.
So it's the opposite.
Yeah, and then the Nazis flipped it.
Right.
So I think, please someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the Nazis.
Essentially what you're saying, what you're sticking to your guns on, is that anyone who uses blue for boys and pink for girls is a Nazi.
Absolutely.
All right, as long as we've got that cleared up, that's the message we're parting on the podcast.
Fuck the gender binary, we protect trans youth.
Exactly. Yes. Be whatever color you want.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think we've established how we don't follow the norms here, because otherwise we wouldn't be two men in our 30s talking about comics on a podcast.
Yeah,
so
this is it.
Do whatever makes you happy.
Absolutely. But yeah, no, I don't think such a strong binary existed in Japan, and so yeah, I don't think the colors mattered as such.
Yeah. The fact that they used colors and names at all, was it the same in the Japanese? Was it literally like Japanese translate, like whatever red in Japanese, was that the character's name? I
can only assume so, yeah.
It's because I can imagine that being a weird thing where, have you ever seen like there's old like fighting games? I can't remember which specific series it was, but one of the earliest fighting games that came out of Japan, they were all meant to be like Japanese characters for the most part. And if there was like an American character in one of these games, and it was like, we need to give an American name. So the American characters name something like Johnny Rockhard or something like that. And that's just like, what Americans called? I don't know.
An absolute porn name.
Yeah, exactly. Or even literally like Tommy America. Like,
yeah,
that
absolutely.
was their extent of that was their own version of like ignorant of other cultures. But that time it's funny because, it's America. So who cares?
It's like the Roti John, isn't it?
The what?
The Roti John is a sandwich from an Asian country that I can't remember. And it's called the Roti John because GIs would turn up and ask for a hamburger, and they would try and describe a hamburger to people, and they'd be like, yeah, it's like beef in bread. And so they called it a roti because that's what bread is called.
Right.
And John because all the Americans were called John.
Johnny America.
And they put minced beef in bread and were like, there, I suppose. And it's called the Roti John.
That's great. That's cool. That's a cool tidbit. So there's a cool tidbit to end on, to be fair. I think we've covered most of, at least what I've read, but also I think the general connotations and stuff. I think going into volume 2 eventually does sound very interesting, because especially if it's darker. But we're definitely gonna space out this for the next big Pokemon release, so we can tie in on that SEO and get that sweet, search optimization. Exactly, yeah. Whenever the next big Pokemon's. Oh, one thing we should end on. What is or was your favorite Pokemon?
I like Gyarados a lot.
Yeah, that's a fair answer. It's not unusual. It's a rarer one because people always associate Gyarados with Magikarp.
Yeah.
Which is one of the best jokes from the anime. And I assume they eventually get to.
Magikarp.
I was surprised they introduced Gyarados before Magikarp, because that was the joke in the anime. It was like, this useless fish Pokemon. And then, it's a Gyarados. Oh, jeez. I think it was partial to Scyther growing up, because
Scyther's badass.
Yeah, nice for hands and kind of a Wolverine aesthetic, which I might have already known about by then, or went Scyther then Wolverine. But yeah, that was a really cool one to me.
Have you seen Scyther's most recent evolution?
They're all bloody. I'll tell you this. This is a point I was going to make. I only care about the original 151.
Oh no, Scyther. So in the most recent Pokemon game, Legends Arceus, which is very cool.
Legends Arceus.
Yeah, so it's set in the.
It sounds like a Monty Python joke.
It's set in the game world of the 4th generation, but it's set hundreds of years ago.
Right.
It's very cool. It's very open world. It's pretty fun.
Okay.
But he gets an evolution called Cleavor, who has axes for hands.
Okay.
And he is badass.
I mean, I'm looking at him now, and it feels a bit try-hard compared to Scyther. Scyther was like, he was smooth where he needed to be, and then he had the sharpness and like he had a cool bug aesthetic, you know?
An interesting thing happened in Pokemon design where they became a bit more generally cutesy and a little bit less representative of life.
Yeah.
Somebody did a really interesting thing where they compared the bird, like the early root bird from every Pokemon game, because there's always one.
Right.
And put them all in the style of Pidgey, and then put them all in the style of the most recent one from the last game, and showed you how the style had evolved so much. To the extent that Gen 1 Pokemon kind of look a bit out of place in Pokemon games now.
Yeah.
And again, I think that this game, this manga, before we finish,
yes,
does something really interesting with all the artwork. I think the artwork is stunning.
The artwork is really good.
The character design and the modeling of the Pokemon, I think it's like great primary source Pokemon design for anybody who has a passing interest in the franchise.
I think it's very indicative of the success of the franchise was just the Pokemon were the main thing, obviously.
And they looked great.
If the Pokemon look great, that's what really carried things along. People were kids, played this game, and it's like, look at all these creatures. And you just saw these creatures, like, these look crazy and different, and like there's so many of them, and they're like individually cool, and I really like that one out of the other ones, so I want to get that one. Like, that's, I think, was a huge part, was the artwork.
Yeah.
And speaking of the artwork, I do have a surprise that is not going to be great for the listeners, but if you could just fill time for like a few seconds. Okay, you could describe what I'm doing if you want, but I'm just going to take these headphones off real quick.
Ryan's taking his cans off, and he's going into his Deadpool bag. He's Russell. He's rustling away. Oh my, Ryan.
Do you want to describe what you're looking at here?
Oh, Ryan has produced a binder of original 90s Pokemon cards. What Ryan doesn't know is that I'm currently an avid Pokemon card collector.
You say I didn't know that? Like, I didn't bring them around so you could evaluate them and tell me which ones are worth anything?
So it's just a whole heap of base set.
So to get across, well, it's an old-ass work binder that no child would be caught dead with. Like, it's a proper work office 90s stationary binder.
It's just majestic.
But then you open it, and it's not mint condition, but the very well-kept condition Pokemon cards. Original, literally first Western America, Europe generation Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
And in order as well. So the gaps you see are because they're in order, and I didn't have them all. You see 2 of the 3 legendary birds.
I do.
And then you've got what released after that, the Gym
Hero set.
Gym Hero set.
Oh wow, I love seeing this. I love seeing people's old collections.
And one thing I was going to mention, a point I was going to make was, I remember as a child getting into the 2nd generation with the gold and silver games.
Yeah. And
that was an extra 100, wasn't it? Extra 100 Pokemon. And at the time, that felt like, oh, cool, we've got now this extra 100 on top of the original 150. Like, this is a cool addition and a new, thing to explore and everything. And then when they did the 3rd generation, as a child, I went, they're going to keep doing this forever.
I'm
stopping now. And that was like, I don't know, like 11, 12.
Yeah.
I saw the future, and I was like, I'm not going to keep up. They're just going to keep doing it. Capitalism ruins everything. I'm stopping now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And even now, I've got a little bit of fondness for that 2nd generation extra 100, but really, I'm a core 151 only kind of guy.
Yeah.
That's my prized Scyther.
Oh, yeah. He's
shiny.
Nice. He's nice. He's
that Electrobuzz was from the
movie.
The movie, yeah.
Yeah,
special edition.
I'm very familiar with these. The holding, because mine all disappeared. So I've started a new collection as an adult.
And what's good as well is some of those have variations behind them. So rather than doing more, some of them have
the non-hollow versions.
Are thicker, yeah, and not like the original or like the additional ones. There's extra ones behind them. And my prize one, I used to have the Charizard, and I think I traded it. I think I must have, because I remember owning it. But
for drugs as a teenager.
Probably for fucking Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Like by that point.
I do. I'm gonna get you one sleeve.
You're gonna get me a sleeve.
I'm gonna produce one sleeve and sleeve one of these cards for you.
Okay.
Because there's one that needs to be in a sleeve.
Ooh. You would tell me which one it is, or?
Yeah, it's the Master.
Oh, okay, so the weird shiny that's shinier than the others.
Yeah, that is a reverse holo from Legendary Collection.
Right.
Legendary Collection was a reprint of the first 2 or 3 sets.
Okay.
So it had base set and jungle and a bit of rocket in it, I think. But it was the first instance of the reverse holos.
Right.
So it had one of these in every pack. And they are generally worth more than base set holos.
Okay. At
this point, unless you get like one of the big 3 in really good condition. Yeah, the Legendary Collection. Am I okay to pull a card out?
Yeah, sure. Right? Go ahead. I've done it.
The Legendary Collection reverse holos are worth quite a lot.
Oh my god, he's got chicken grease on his fingers. Now he's like licking his lips while he's holding the card.
Oh, he's rubbed his dick on it. Oh, what's he doing?
Why you gotta take it too far, man?
Yeah, these aren't in bad condition.
Yeah, I said they've sat in an attic in the plastic sleeves for decades.
Yeah, well, this is it, isn't it? Yeah, they're not in terrible condition.
So the one you were looking at, the reverse holo, is there a ballpark figure on? Like, are we talking 1 million, 2 million?
No, like sub 100 certainly.
Okay.
But they're just very cool and they're hard to come by. Like you don't see them very often. So 1 minute. It's also in quite nice condition compared to the rest.
Yeah, they're not bad. Yeah, I think if there's any you want, like maybe I'll hang on to them till your next birthday rolls around, and then maybe that'll be like in a card or something.
Okay. Oh my god.
I get there's a shiny Gyarados in there.
I know. And do you know what? I've been after a base set Gyarados for a while.
Ah, well.
That's in very nice condition, Ryan. Well done.
This is probably going to be one of the most interesting things Abs on any of these episodes because I've got nothing else like this.
What we have show and tell where Jamie's like, show us your Pokemon cards, mate.
What? Even when we're not talking about Pokemon cards, and now the weekly Pokemon cards section.
Dude, I could quite happily do a weekly Pokemon card section. I own enough.
Look, if this podcast takes off and we get a fan base and they're just like, we want to hear you guys just talking about anything, we'll look into like a Pokemon card weekly podcast.
I think we should end here.
Yep, this is a good place to end on.
I've had a wonderful time.
Yeah, as always.
I hope you all have at home as well. I have a thing to pimp out.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so it's something I did a while ago that I've started working on again, called Myths for Sad Grown-Ups, and it's where I retell...
This sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, it's where I do improvised retellings of ancient myths as bedtime stories for grown-ups.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so it's called Myths for Sad Grown-Ups. It's on YouTube. There is one episode available currently.
I will reserve my judgment until I've listened to an episode, and then I'll give a biting critique of exactly what I think about it.
Okay,
and for next week's episode.
That'll be follow-up.
Should we also decide what we're going to do for next week? Because we made this mistake last week, and we almost didn't. We very late in the game decided to do this.
Yeah.
And this was a bit of a Hail Mary because I knew we had stuff to say on this. And it wasn't going to be the end of the world if I didn't read it, because we could have filled an hour anyway, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but, we're going to be regimented. We're going to be strict. We're going to give the people what they want. So,
have you ever read Mouse?
Yes, I started Mouse. So, do we want to go into that for the third episode? Do we want a bit of experience on this format before we tackle something that's a bit heavier and a bit more gravitas?
Okay.
Because we 100% we will do Mouse soon.
Should we do a deep dive episode where we talk specifically about one issue of a comic?
I think so. What, we analyze the one issue intently, or that we talk about like the larger world?
No, yeah, we analyze one issue.
Okay,
I think that would be fun.
All right, yeah, we will do a special one-off. I'll find us a comic.
Yeah,
maybe we could do I tell you what, let's get a recent one. Let's get a current one that's out now.
Yeah.
Something a bit, and we can, because I think that's going to be a format going forward at some point. I think I would like us to hit current things that are happening so we can get a bit more like up to date and engaged. So yeah, I'll find us something that's maybe just started that we don't have any previous knowledge about or anything like that.
And we'll just read it on the day and talk about issue 1.
Yep, I think that's a good plan. So it's a bit of a mystery, but tune in next week to find out what we're doing, as with every episode. We will have some socials coming up, and once we have the socials up and running, hopefully by the time this episode comes out, then that will be Jamie's spiel. At the end, I'll give you can run through them all and have a bit of fun with them. And
sounds like good fun. I can do
exactly. The Comic Stan YouTube channel will be launching, I think, early next year due to logistic recording space issues, which I'll leave at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it will be happening, and I will be kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of comics myself and kind of looking at, I suppose, superhero comics for the most part as well, because they are the most popular, and kind of my issues with them and my issues with issues. That could be that's so good.
Issues.
My issues with issues. Yeah, I think that might be the name. All right, fantastic. Great space to end. And I thank you for coming with us on this journey, and we will see you in the next one.
We'll see you in the next one.
Goodbye.